Welcome to Longevity Industries' presentation of the Destiny of Manufacturing podcast. I'm your host, Dean Phillips, and I have with me today Dave Bishop. He comes to us from Wila USA, where he is the Western Business Development Manager. Welcome, Dave.
Good morning.
Great to have you here, sir. Right off the bat.
Likewise, Dean. It's good to be with you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. My pleasure to have an expert in forming and fabricating. We've been dying to get more people on from forming and fabricating because we've kind of stay on more on the fabric or more on the forming side. We need more fabrication people like yourself. So I'm glad to have you on here. So thank you.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Right off the bat, what is your big takeaway for 5 years from now? What are we going to see?
Well, I think the obvious that everybody's been expecting is going to be, further use of robots, further use of automation. That has to come because of the labor pool and the lack of available machine operators and the skill not being there when they bring people in, and the long training periods, and the fact that we're not seeing the courses being offered at the university and the collegiate levels to develop those people. So I think between the automation and the robotics, I think that operators not being available, I think that companies will have no choice but to take a look at those options, and anything that creates extra non-value added time or inefficiencies, it's just simply going to have to go away. There's companies will simply not be able to compete that are inefficient. There's no question about that.
Yeah. I was driving down here in Tennessee. I was driving down the interstate, and I kid you not, almost every other bulletin board was now hiring, and people wanted, and you even hear it on ads where people now are having to be a little more creative when they're trying to do hiring. Things like like Schneider Trucking, I heard there was on their ad, they were saying, well, we have to, we're offering where you can bring your animals and your pets with you on the road. So they're just having to be creative and come up with new ways to try and attract more personnel coming in and actually showing up for job interviews, because I've heard that's another big issue from a lot of manufacturers. So
one of the things we're seeing here in the West is a lot of companies are offering signing bonuses.
Yes.
That's becoming a real big. Sure, it's happening throughout North America, but it's almost a common theme here in the Western U.S. It doesn't matter California to Washington, the West Coast to the Rocky Mountains, to hire quality people. Now they're having to offer, such things as signing bonuses or additional vacation time and things like that. Things that they never would have thought about offering 5 years ago.
Yeah, you're right, and I think if you're smart, if you're smart and you're moving to a new company or a new job, this is a good time to negotiate that on the front side, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about your background. Now, I know you've spent a lot of time in manufacturing, but for our audience, tell us a little bit about your history.
Yeah, I actually started out in the office equipment manufacturing with a company that was headquartered in New York, but they had a very large facility in Los Angeles that I worked at. Anyway, they made everything from the file folders to the file cabinets, even such things as desk labeling systems, you name it. But started out as a young kid running a machine that made the old Pendaflex file folders with the steel rods in them. And I went through school always favoring the mechanical side of everything that I could study and learn to do with that involved anything mechanical. I really took a liking to, and just out of luck, a couple phone calls from people that knew someone that knew me. I ended up getting an opportunity to interview for a distributor in Los Angeles that sold the sheet metal fabrication equipment. Went to work with them at 18 years old, knowing nothing that is about the industry, but learned a tremendous amount while I was there about shears and turret punch presses, press brakes, and I even had the luxury of being around there when the first generation of hydraulic press brakes really started to come into vogue. And so then I was very fortunate. I had one of the salesmen there took a real interest in me and was kind enough to take me out into the field a lot. I'd spend 2-3 days, maybe even a week with him every month, going out in the field and visiting customers and meeting with them. And as I was there, I would spend a lot of time watching the operators, how they did things, everything from, watching the turret punch presses run. And in those days, there were a lot of the stylus machines that were out. So I'd watch them, moving the stylus around to punch the holes by hand. And then I also was watching the press brake operators and how they would handle parts and how they would turn them over or move them in and out to engage the back gauge and step on the pedal to form them and flip the parts and whatever to create a finished part. And it was just something I always took a tremendous interest in. And then I ended up getting a call one day to go to work for one of the larger manufacturers in our industry of those same exact machines, and spent 10 years there, and ended up working in the helping them to launch their press brake line into the United States and their press brake tooling line, and worked with those for most of the 10 years I was with that company. And then I got an offer to go start a division of a company in our industry that manufactured and sold press brake tooling, and spent 10 years doing that. And then ended up here in Arizona as the Western Regional Manager for Wila. Spent a lot of time visiting accounts throughout the Western U.S. and in Canada and for a while in Mexico. And then also during that time, spent quite a bit of time. My education in college was in marketing and business management, so I ended up spending also a lot of time in the marketing side as I went through those companies as well.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, the industry's been very good to me, and I've had a chance to work with some awesome people and seen things that most people will never see in their lives. And it's been just a career that I never would have dreamed of, but I've enjoyed every minute of it. And I can't imagine at any point, or I could imagine at any point ever leaving it. That's for sure.
Right. I could tell you, I agree with you 100% on that, because I've had, from my times of working with different companies to my time going all the way back to working for Niagara, I had the benefit of traveling to a not so bad place to visit, which was Hawaii to Pearl Harbor, to help set up a 2,000-ton press brake. Now, as amazing and beautiful as it is to see Hawaii, it is pretty impressive to watch a 2,000-ton press brake operate and bend 1-inch plate.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure we could share experiences all day long after the years that you and I've been in the industry. But I get to go into a lot of top secret facilities, a lot of the military bases, here in the West. You name them, if they're at a military installation and they have anything to do with sheet metal fabrication, the odds are very good that I work with them routinely or have in the past. And I'm proud to say we even have a very strong presence with our products at Area 51. So we've gotten that far.
So aliens there, did you get to see any? Yes? No?
No, I actually offered on several occasions. Of course, I was more than happy to offer to help them when they bought our tooling and the new press brakes that they were going to go into, to help them come in, do operator training and things like that. And each time their answer to me was, well, once this machine arrives at our facility, you'll never see it again as long as you live. That ended that.
I having done a lot of work for the military over the years, because we sold a lot of equipment into different military bases, that tends to be the case. There's very few bases, unless they're commercialized, that you get to go into after. Once it's in place and what they're working on, they're not interested in visiting with you at all.
Yeah, that's very true, very true. But all the other places I've worked with, fortunately, I was able to go in there and work with them, their operators and things like that. So like you, I've seen some amazing things, but as you mentioned, and I couldn't agree more, once you've done the project and it's complete, you're probably not going to get back into that area again for a long time, until at least the next press breaker or what have you goes in there. Right.
Now tell me, I know the background of Wila and the specialized tooling and about the crowning devices and that, but can you give us a little insight into what's going on new and what's different? I think a lot of people know and understand Wila does tooling, but can you explain some of the differences that you have in the Wila tooling versus some of the other ones?
Well, Hans Wilson, our owner, he's had a tradition that he's stuck with the entire time he's managed the company since his father started it. But his goal is very simple, and that is we want to be the strongest player with the dominant technology on everything that goes between the ram and the bed of the press brake. We don't want to get into offering other lines of tooling for other equipment. We don't want to get into making special one-of-a-kind tooling, anything like that. It's all going to be, everything is about using a standard off-the-shelf product, that can be put into just about any press brake anywhere in the world that we can use to maximize the productivity of that press brake. So, as you know, we sell hydraulic clamping systems, and they're designed to go in, again, just about any type of press brake, and we predominantly tool those up with our two tooling systems, whether it be our American-style tooling for those that want to use American-style tooling, and usually those are people that have a big investment in special tooling they want to continue to be able to use, or some tools that they've made themselves, that sort of thing. Or we have our proprietary new standard tooling system that we designed a long time ago, and it definitely has become the leading tooling system worldwide. And that system is, we're seeing more and more newer press brakes going with that system. And it's at one time, it was new to the market here in North America not too long ago, and it really has taken off and become the dominant force in terms of tooling systems. And as you and I spoke before, the idea being is that tools that are taller, it has a more robust hang on the punches, so we can make those tools taller and still keep the stability in them. And it's a basic simple rule that the taller a tool is, whether it be the punch or the die, the more versatile it is. And so we really focus on providing the speed of setup, the accuracy that people need, the durability via the proprietary steel and our CNC departing process that we developed. The flexibility, we focus on that again with the taller tools, deeper leaf areas and things like that. And then also finished part quality. And we really want to show the customer that, okay, you take all this and put it to use. When everything is done and the part moves over to the assembly area or out in the field to be assembled, that everything lines up, and you eliminate a lot of the hassles that have traditionally come with putting things together once they've been fabricated. And then of course the focus on operator safety. So that's our day-to-day focus. Now, more recently, we're looking at how we can go back further than that in the process and provide technologies that help to not only speed the setup, but to help the operator in what they're doing. One example is our smart tool locator, which is a system of lights that are on the clamping system and the crowning system, or the bottom tool holder if the press brake ends up getting equipped with one of those. But the way the system works, generally speaking, is when you go to put the tools in, a set of lights will tell you, what area of the clamping system and the crowning system or bottom tool holder to place the punch and the die. So it eliminates setup errors. But once everything is in position, those lights change their function, and they tell the operator where to position the part. So if they've got different tools staged along the ram and the bed of the machine, the lights will actually tell them from bend to bend to bend where to position the part. So it also does a lot to help to eliminate errors in as the operator goes through the bending sequence. And needless to say, it really helps to reduce scrap. So that's a technology we've been working on and we've been improving. We've also, instead of having just hydraulic clamping systems and die holders and crowning systems, we're also right now moving into more and more pneumatic systems. And this gives the customer the ability not only to connect to air to eliminate the need for a hydraulic pump to drive the clamping system and the clamping on the clamping system and for the punches, and then also the clamping on the die holders, the crowning system to clamp the dies. They now have the option of using either hydraulics via pump that's either a standalone pump that we provide, or using the hydraulics on board the machine, or to connect to an air supply within the shop. And for people that are doing a lot of prototype work that are doing especially cellular manufacturing, that concept is really nice, because as long as they've got air in the shop where the machine is going to go, it gives them the ability to take, say, as an example, a small 6-foot or even a 4-foot press brake, what have you, and move it from one cell to the next, to the next, to the next, move it around the shop and plug up to air and be able to go right back to work. So it's a really nice feature. And we also have a system we call our tip system, and the idea there is we have the tooling in a rack in inventory, and the customer can pick up the tools and actually identify the tools to know not only what the tool number is, what the profile and the configuration of the tool is, but to actually identify that specific tool, what the tolerance is in terms of the accuracy on the height, the tip radius on the punch, the V open on the die. All that is right there in a QR code on the on the tool that they can scan in, and they load that into the control. And now the press brake physically knows every detailed dimension of that particular tool. So it really helps to enhance accuracy. That's a newer technology. Admittedly, we don't have a lot of that in the United States or North America as a whole right now, but it is something that we're spending a lot of time and effort on in research and development, and you'll see more developments coming on that line as time goes forward.
You mentioned earlier about the word versatility and flexibility. What now? You and I were talking before we got on here. Can you tell us a little bit about an example of where you've seen versatility have some positive benefits for customers, and what you mean by versatility, of what that means?
Yeah. Well, the simple rule, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, is that the taller tool is, the more versatile it is. And so what I've been doing specifically, and I know our other regional business development managers do this as well, is we tell the customer when we're involved in a project that the best thing they can do when they buy their press brake is to get as much open height as they can. And the idea being is the open height ends up serving as our envelope. That tells us, what the limitations are, what we can physically put in that envelope. And so if we have the good fortune, in most cases we do, but to be able to work with a customer from the beginning of the project, we tell them, take a look at what you're doing and then ask yourself, okay, if I was to increase the height of my tools, could I be able to do a wider range of parts? Maybe for myself, products that we produce internally, or maybe for your existing customer base, or when you look outward, how many different industries, how many other customers in the area, maybe, how many different types of products would you like to be able to form in your business that you're not able to now? You may be doing some work for a small cabinet manufacturer, something like that, or electrical box manufacturer, for, I don't know, maybe electrical outlets or things like that, or electrical boxes that are used for switching or for fuses, what have you. But what happens if someone down the street or maybe in the city you're in is doing something like audio components, or maybe they're doing, aircraft parts or whatever, they need to be able to do deep box bending. And so what we teach them is that, but anyway, what we teach them is with the open height, you can use these taller tools, and then you can use profiles like Q punches, which are 30 degrees, in our case, 28 degrees with the 30-degree dies. It allows you to create just about any bend angle you'd ever want to create, but as that punch gets taller, you can use it to produce deeper and deeper parts. And so then those punches can also be used not only to do 90-degree bends and 30-degree bends, but they can also be used to do hemming work and materials of 22 gauge up to 14 gauge with hemming dies, and even up to 12 gauge and sometimes thicker with the right tooling up to 10 gauge. So that's a very, very versatile punch profile. And it also, by using a punch profile like that, you end up making less tool changes because of its versatility. Mm-hmm. And then for those folks that are doing all 90-degree bends, which overwhelmingly is the largest percentage of our customer base, we get them into taller gooseneck punches. And if you take a look at a gooseneck punch, anybody knows anything about a press brake will know that a gooseneck punch is designed with a big relief area in the backside, so you can project return flanges into that relief area. Well, it only stands to reason that the deeper that relief area is and the taller it is, the longer those return flanges will be, and therefore, again, giving the ability to bend deeper parts, deeper U channels, deeper boxes, and what have you. So, of course, the speed of setup, the accuracy of the tooling, the press brake, the back aids are all very important. The durability of the tooling, as I mentioned, at Wila, we shoot for the customer getting at least 10 to 12 years or more of service life, where the tool is in either new or light new condition at the end of that period of time, regardless of how many parts they've bent. But, and then of course we also look for finished part quality. But I think more than anything right now, knowing that all that's pretty much a given, and and certainly there are other press brake tooling manufacturers out there that also build high quality tooling. But at the same time, we really want to emphasize that flexibility portion, because that more than anything determines what work a company can bring into the shop versus what they can't do. And as I always tell my customers, nothing is worse for you than to buy a brand new machine tool and have to tell your customers that, sorry, we can't form those parts or produce those parts for you because. Right. And so that whole emphasis on flexibility really plays well with customers. And one thing's for certain: once they experience the difference versus older machine tools that don't have that flexibility, they'll never go back. And to get to your point about an example, I had a customer here locally where I live, just outside of Phoenix, that was spending a lot of four-sided boxes for the audio industry, and they went to buy a new press brake, and the owner asked me to visit with them, while they were sitting with the press brake salesman, so that he makes sure he covered all the bases. And he looked at me and he said, given the type of work we're doing, if you were to buy press brake, what features would you want? And I told him, I said, look, you're doing four-sided boxes. The most important thing that you can have is a tremendous amount of open height in that machine, so that you can use the taller punches, the taller extenders to be able to form those boxes, and any new products that might come along that might have deeper boxes. And so he looked at the machine salesman and he said, how much open height can we get? And the salesman called the factory and found out that they could get up to 26 inches. So he said, oh, okay, that's what I want. And he ordered the machine with 26 inches of open height. Well, short end of the story, they were forming all of their parts on 4 hydraulic press brakes up till that point. They bought the machine with the 26 inches of open height, and they bought the offline programming system, hired a young operator that was very, very computer savvy, trained him how to run the machine, and did all their programming of their parts and downloaded those programs to the press brake from their offline programming software. And 2 years later, when I made a visit there, they had completely eliminated those other 4 press brakes. And I remember asking the owner's son, I said, I'm curious, what did you do with the other press brakes? And he looked at me and he said, that's the great thing about this. He said, we found that as we were sending our jobs out to the shop to be formed, and as we kept asking ourselves, what press brake do we want to send this job to or that job, it became easier and easier and easier just to say, well, hey, send it to the new press brake with the 26 inches of open height, because if we send the part out there, we never have to worry about whether that machine can form it or not. We always know that in our case, the answer is always going to be yes. And so all the jobs just naturally went to that machine. And the end result was one press brake with offline programming software, a very advanced control, and really tall tools inside a machine with a lot of open height ended up replacing 4 press brakes. That's amazing.
It's interesting too, because I think what also happens is that people don't look at the culture of the plant, because every one of them is its own entity. And when you actually go out there, you find that people want to work with tools that work. If you've got this old rusty wrench or you got this brand new wrench, it's nice to have a new tool, and it's nice to have a tool that's versatile, as you said. Versatility, I think, in my mind, to the end user equals the word opportunity. If you're creating new opportunities for this person to find new work, new places to talk about what they do. And I think that's really how that translates for a manufacturer is this tool is going to create a new opportunity for me and make me more competitive to where I can make more money. And at the end of the day, that is really important, especially today, to be able to do that. And it also helps too. I really like the idea of, and I've always preached this, that as a manufacturer or working with a company that manufactures equipment, it's important to include the tooling people and the other people involved in the project, because you're trying to build a solution. You're not just trying to sell products.
Exactly.
Have you found that, let me ask it this way. What do you see as far as workforce development? What can we do to try and find more solutions to that, Pandora's box that we have created by not supporting manufacturing?
Well, it's interesting that you say that. Going back to what you just said, Dean. When you mentioned that flexibility creates opportunity, I think that's an awesome way of putting it. Matter of fact, I think I'll borrow that one from you.
You're welcome.
But at the same, it is. It's great. It really does sum it up very nicely. But I think along with that, though, as those opportunities come, you have to consider the skill level of the people that you've got, running your machine tools and your manufacturing equipment. And, as you mentioned, that really has become a big problem. Not too long ago, we had some schools, some tech schools, some local community colleges and even a couple of universities that did offer some of the manufacturing trades. And even those that were more specific to our industry, the sheet metal fabrication side. And but I'm sorry to say that I've watched those little by little all drop off, and for whatever reason, I don't understand it myself, and I probably never will. But our universities and our schooling system doesn't seem to take much interest in the manufacturing trades, and we have so many kids that are going through school in these days that have no idea what they want to do when they get out, but they're never presented with the opportunity to be successful on the manufacturing side and what manufacturing offers. And I mean, we have so many kids that love the idea of working with computers when they get out of school, but how many of them think about running a computer that's programming machine tools in a large manufacturing facility? That's an exciting career, but they don't hear about those opportunities when they're going through our school system, and we're certainly not, again, training them for that. So it's tough, because the old days where sheet metal shops could say that, well, I don't have the person I need to run this brand new press brake here, but on the other hand, I know there's some local companies out here that do have good operators. I could always go offer someone from one of those companies, 75 cents an hour or whatever the case is, to get them to come over here. Well, you could do that in the 70s and 80s, but now it's getting harder and harder because those people don't exist. And because, again, we don't have that training system that's developing them, as they come out of high school. And so it's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of our manufacturers, but I've come to the conclusion after meeting with, the number of companies I meet with every year, that the only way for fabricators to ensure themselves, and manufacturers as a whole, that they're going to have that talent pool that they need to be able to run their shops and to run their equipment, and to guarantee that in the future they have that talent pool to grow the company, is they're going to have to develop their own internal training programs. I'm absolutely convinced that's the way it's going to be, because I just don't see the interest in our education system of offering anything to meet that need. And so I've even been to customers recently that have had outstanding positions available in middle management, and where they were interviewing young people to try to replace some older people that were, getting on in their years and didn't have any more years to be in the company, but were in important middle management positions. And I've had business owner after business owner, or general manager, vice president, what have you, has told me that we can't find anybody for those positions. Yeah. And when I ask them why, they'll say, well, again, no interest in coming into a manufacturing company, or that they don't see a future in being a middle-level manager in a company that manufactures, as an example, file cabinets or auto parts or whatever. They just don't see that as being exciting as it is to work for, a stockbroker or a software developer, or some of the more, commonly known tech companies. And so, again, I think that our manufacturers are going to have to step back and say, okay, since this talent pool is not available to us, how do we come about having the people available when we need them, and then growing them so that as the company grows, we can have them move up within the organization as older executives and mid-level managers move on or retire. And again, I think to develop that, especially in larger companies, they're going to have to accept the fact that part of their responsibility is going to be developing their own talent pool. I just don't see any way around that.
I agree with that completely. Most of the companies that I run into have come to that conclusion, that we're going to, like, especially tool and die. Tool and die is one of the toughest areas, because it's not a skill set of just machining. Finding a machinist is one thing, but finding a tool and die person who understands this is more on the stamping side, where somebody's building their own tool, but they actually have to produce a part. Well, in order to produce a part, you have to know a lot more. You have to understand the process. You have to understand the material science and all of that. Fabrication and press brakes, I've always felt, was more about the operator. That it was very much somewhat a black art. How did they do it? Well, I don't know how.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's still a lot of that. It's still true.
Yeah. What about automation? Talking about solution or solving that problem of workforce development. Is there opportunities to use automation or robotics to try and fill some of those gaps?
Well, we're certainly seeing a lot of machines now that are going out with some form of automation on them. That is really starting to happen, especially with press brakes that are going out with automatic tool changers. I mean, if you think about it, you look at laser machines and turret punching machines. It's very easy to buy, what they call manipulators or sheet load and unload systems. that type of thing, because the material is moving through those pieces of equipment in the flat plane. So it's very easy to move it through the inventory handling systems all the way out to the punching machine or the laser machine, whether it be on a conveyor or whether it be even the forklift, and put it into the system and move it into the machine, and when it's finished, out of the machine, because it remains on the same horizontal flat plane. But with a press brake, the problem has always been is that, of course, the material comes in flat, but it comes out in the form of a box, a channel, a panel, what have you, which makes it very difficult for robotic equipment to be able to stack it. And not to mention handling the part through the bin sequence, and which is not only, of course, turning it and rotating it from one bin to the next, but also turning the part over and flipping it for the sake of doing bins that are going in the opposite direction. And that's always been the Achilles heel of robots. So what we're seeing right now is a lot of fabricators are meeting that need halfway by installing machines that have automatic tool changers on. So in order to speed the setup and to eliminate setup errors in terms of the tooling selection, they're leaving the machine and the automatic tool changer to change the tooling. So the real advantage to that is that if you have, as an example, a company that's running 3 shifts, one of the big problems on press brakes has always been is that operator A on the first shift will select one set of tooling to form part number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he selects his punch and his die to do that, what he thinks is the best tooling combination. Well, then operator B on the second shift comes in and he makes his tool changes and selects his tooling. Well, if he selects a different die, all the inside bin radii are different, which changes the blank size. So then you've got a big problem right there. And you start ending up with a bunch of scrap and a lot of downtime on the machine so they figure out the problem. Well, imagine if you have 3 shifts with 3 different operators, how complicated that can be. And then people, in order to overcome those problems, they start making changes to the programs on the press brake. They start, going over and shearing up their own blanks. I mean, any number of things can happen as operators try to compensate for those changes, not realizing, how important it is that everybody uses the same program and the same set of tooling to form the same part. So when you have an automatic tool changer on a machine, a lot of those problems go away because those decisions, respectfully are taken out of the hands of the operator, and it's done, via the tool changer instead of the operator making those choices. And we're seeing more robotics get introduced into the press brake side, but still there is a huge room for improvement and a lot of room for opportunities given the number of press brakes that are installed here in North America. So it's as a percentage of machines that robots are attached to, it's still very small. But I believe with the improvements that they're making and some of the flexibility that they're also adding to robotic systems, I think that in the coming 3 or 4 next 5 years, I think we'll see a pretty dramatic change there.
That's excellent. And we are unfortunately just about out of time here, Dave. Tell everybody how they can reach you.
Again, I'm the Western Regional Business Development Manager for Wila. I live in the Phoenix, Arizona area. I can be reached by email at dbishop@wilausa.com, or my phone is 480-236-9459.
Great. Thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate your insight and your time. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Dean. I appreciate the opportunity, and good luck to you, and thanks to the audience for taking the time to listen.